Alright, welcome to this quick installation demo for Howler edition, beta edition actually, beta version of Howler 9. Let's see what that installation looks like. Basically, when you have downloaded the installer, you'll have that perhaps on your desktop or in a folder like I have it here, and you can simply double click it. You could also right click it and select open. I have the French version of Windows here, so it shows a little bit different. And at this point, you will probably have user account control. Ask if you're say yes, and here we go. Alright, so this installation will actually see that we already have an installation, but it's okay, you can install on top of that if you have a prior version of the same release. I don't recommend installing this on top of version 8 or 7 or other earlier versions. Make sure you choose a different folder if you do have and want to keep the old version. It's probably best to do an uninstall, reboot, and then install this clean, but your mileage may vary and you may actually be able to use older versions still at the same time. Alright, let's keep them there and keep that as well. Click next again. And finally, yes, we do want the desktop icon. It's always good to have a shortcut to launch it. And there you go. So let's ready for install. So this installation looks a little bit shorter now than it used to be because we have internalized a lot of files, a lot of filters that used to be separate programs, separate executables, communicating, contacting the ActiveX server through the COM. And much of that has been internalized and is now part of the intrinsic part of the main program. So there are fewer files to install, still a few to register. You see that at the end, registering files, and there it's that. Now the installation, if it goes without any problems, you are ready to launch the program. But if for any reason, and this is a very rare occasion, if for any reason something prevented the installer from being elevated to the administrator level that it needs in order to register the files, you would have the ability to do that right here, set administrator rights, right? So that the program can run the first time as administrator, which it would need to self-register or to perhaps create a subfolder or something like that. Most of that should have been done now during the installation and everything's good. So I'm going to launch the program and guide you through 2 or 3 initial steps. You might see a slightly different layout initially. Maybe this set of tools on the right side will be on the left side for you. So you have a couple of different layouts possible. That's under the Windows layout menu, and you see right now I have the sidebar on the right side and I can move it over to the left side. You can also see the toolbar has some options there too under the layouts again. It could be a 2-column toolbar, which is great if you have a small netbook or just a low resolution screen and you just can't fit that entire long vertical bar on there. So what you would want to do is select to 2-column. You can also have it floating, or you can have it again stuck on the right side. So you can float the toolbar, that's another option, in which case you get to decide where you want it at any time. Alright, so that's one thing about configuration. Depending on the speed of your system, you can also perhaps be interested under settings to see if the GPU is enabled or not. So first of all, there are memory options to consider. How much memory do you want to use for undo, to store the images for the undo? I would go up to the max these days because you probably have 4 GB of RAM, and if not, I would recommend you do get some more. And there's also there's also a where the temp folder is, where are the images stored that are cached away during the use of the program. There's that, and then there's also the threading and CPU. I'm on a i7 here with 4 cores that are multi-threaded or hyper-threaded, so there's a total of 8 threads available. And this is the 2nd generation, not the fastest anymore, but still great. And I, for some reason, have disabled the GPU. Not really the smartest way to go because I have a good graphics card on this system and I could actually enable the GPU. So something I will do here, and you can actually see the difference in performance if you click on benchmark. You can go disable GPU and run the benchmark, and what that will do is it will see how quickly does it render a certain Mandelbrot operation by using or avoiding the GPU. And so you can see this one with the GPU ended up being about 4 times faster. And again, your mileage will may vary and it may just be very different. It's good to have an idea of what's going on. There's also some startup plugins. You could choose certain programs to launch automatically. Such as when you launch Dogwaffle, you may want to know what time it is, and so there's a clock you can start automatically. There are some other filters or other tools that you might, like the mouth plugin for lip syncing, the Mod Dog player to play back some music in mod format, going back to old times. And there are a few other things under the GUI also to explore. And those are perhaps if you're using the if you're not using the US American keyboard and OS version, but maybe you have input in French or in Spanish and German. The numbers very often use commas rather than the period as a decimal point separator. And I have the French version. It didn't actually flag it here, but I have the French version of the OS, and that will still be good. It's actually automatically adapting it internally now, so you don't need to override it there. You can if you want to. Alright, let's start painting. I'm using a mouse here, so I'm not seeing any pressure sensitive change of size on the brushes because, well, it's a mouse. You could simulate that though with the curve tool. And with the curve tool, you get to draw a couple of points and then say, okay, let's go and simulate. Let's go quickly clear here. Simulate a brush stroke that's actually pressure sensitive. You can either not do that, the regular stroke going along that, or you can go with this one here, which is to paint a brush along the path. In this case, it's going to kind of gradually change the size and make it look like it's a brush stroke along the path. And so let's see, of course, as usual, you can select different tools by left clicking, and always keep in mind many of these tools also have a right click option. So when you right click, you'll see tons of preset brushes when you do that on the brush tool. If you look at the fill bucket, it will open the fill settings. If you look at the brush tools, some other tools might not have a menu, but this one here, that one has the lens flares and lots of other tools. And certainly, if you're a new user to Dogwaffle, if you've never used Dogwaffle, I would certainly encourage you to explore this. Also look for the tooltips. There's some very valuable information of what it does and how to use it. For instance, for this little pointing hand, what you do is you click and drag it, and that will move your image around. If you prefer to use both hands on the keyboard, you can also use Control and Shift at the same time. So when you are not doing that, you're in whatever current drawing tool. Let's say, for instance, the rectangle fill tool, right? And then you change colors, and you have another rectangle and another color, and so on. But now, if you want to move this around, this entire image, you do Shift Control and it moves this thing around. You can also use with the right button, Shift Control and right button will zoom in relative to the center of the screen. So that's how you see very quick navigation around different areas of the image. And you can also use the thumb wheel if you have a rotating thumb wheel on top of your in the middle of your mouse. That's a great feature to have, by the way. If you're looking for a new mouse, by all means get yourself one that does have a nice thumb wheel on top, because it adds so much more capability. You can also quite often right click or middle click that thumb wheel. It's a middle click button, and that will pop up the additional tools menu here too. So it's available here with a right click, it's available here with a middle click, and it's available here too with the pull down menu. That's where you see the different preset brushes, and it's time to explore. So I'll let you go now and enjoy. In particular, it's finished just on one of the new features that version 9 is bringing. So we have where is it, Puppy Ray as the ray tracer. But before we do that, we need to give it some data. So let's render something, perhaps. Let's do a brick texture. There you go. And then let's go and do another render on top of that. Let's see, or maybe one of the stylized or the artistic styles. There, the weave pattern. Alright, let's do that. Alright, so we have a funky little pattern there, and I'm going to render that as a height map in Puppy Ray. Let's also keep a copy of this first here. Let's store the image. There it is. So we have a snapshot of that. and then actually also copy it to the swap buffer. You never know, it might do us good. We might want to have it in an alternate buffer, so copy to the swap image. And so now we have it both in the main buffer and in the swap buffer. And what we'll do next is, of course, to use ray tracing with the puppy ray tool on the transform puppy ray. And so with puppy ray, you see a 3D scene that you can preview here. You can use the rotate mode. There is also global illumination you can enable. You can increase the intensity of it, and of course also the elevation itself. This one here is moving the light. That's the position of the light source in this preview. We can also go and change the, there's some more options here on the more to see more details. But you can also change the position or the elevation of that terrain, so how high it's moving it up. Based on that, we can go to scale, I think, scale world, there it is. Yeah, making it maybe not quite so high in elevation. And then move the camera. This is the camera position here. You can move the camera way low into this. And perhaps again, with this, rotate a little bit up and choose a nice angle also for the light source. So I'm going to go with the light source here. I'm going to go far away in the background, but also make sure that it casts shadows that are long shadows. So I want to have the sun pretty low. All right, let's go and render that, ray trace that. And right now it's in high quality, so it's not the final rendering, but it's a good starting point to see where it's ultimately going to go. And if you want to give it a little bit more time, you can go to the final render and even beyond that with sub-pixel addressing and really have a nice 3D look of your terrain as it was interpreted as an elevation map. Alright, so thanks for watching, and welcome to the beta version of Project Dog Waffle Howler Edition 9, coming out final release sometimes in September, we hope. There's still a lot more to come, but we wanted to share the fun and the joy in this new feature and a couple of tons of other new features that you can see on the website. So be sure to have fun with this, and by all means, please join the forums at Yahoo groups and give us some feedback if you find something not working or if you have a question on anything. And then also to show your artwork and show off what you're doing with it. All right, thanks, and we'll see you later.